Welcome to the Silicon Grimoire. Picture the scene. It is 1589. The North Sea is a black, churning cauldron of ice and foam. A royal fleet is trying to make its way from Denmark to Scotland. On board is the young King of Scotland, James VI, the man who will become the King of England and commission the Bible you likely have on your shelf. But he isn't praying. He is terrified. See, this storm isn't natural. It's wrong. The winds are blowing contrary to nature. James believes he knows why. He believes that back on the coast of North Berwick, a coven of witches has taken a cat, christened it, tied the joints of a dead man to its body, and hurled it into the ocean to raise a tempest that will drown the king. This is not folklore to him. This is an assassination attempt. This is high treason committed by metaphysical means. When James survives and returns to Scotland, he doesn't just arrest people. He descends into a feverish intellectual obsession. He needs to understand the mechanics of how this happened. He needs to understand the source code of evil. The result is the text we are analyzing today, the Daemonologie of 1597. Now, you might think this is just a dusty book about broomsticks and cauldrons. You would be wrong. This book is the founding document of the surveillance state. It is a treatise on information warfare. And, crucially for us in 2026, it gives us the definitive definition of artificial intelligence, almost 430 years before ChatGPT. James coined a phrase in this book that haunts me, calls the devil Simia Dei, God's ape. The mimic, the entity that cannot create but can only copy, distort, and simulate reality. Today, we are going to do a deep dialectical analysis of this text. We are going to look at the thesis, the theology of the copy, the antithesis, the brutality of the torture described in News from Scotland, and the synthesis, how this maps onto the deepfakes and algorithmic control of the modern world. Welcome to the Daemonologie, Segment 1. The thesis, the mechanics of mimicry. Let's open the book. The Daemonologie is written as a Socratic dialogue between two characters, Philomaths, the skeptic, whose name means lover of learning, and Epistman, the expert, the one who knows. This is a very specific rhetorical device. James is using the skeptic to voice all the doubts you might have. Are witches real? Isn't it just mental illness? Oh. So that the expert, James himself, can crush them with logic. So, what is the core argument? The void this book fills is the lack of a scientific demonology. Before this, witch hunting was a mob activity.
Oh.
James turns it into a jurisprudence. The central pillar of James's theory is found in Book 1, Chapter 6. Philomaths asks how the devil performs miracles. Epistman shuts him down immediately. The devil cannot perform miracles. Only God is a creator. James writes, the duel is God's ape counterfeiting that by his magicians. Made their wands to appear so onely to men's outward senses. This is critical. James argues that the devil is a master of virtual reality. He creates impressions in the air. He manipulates the light and the atmosphere to make you see something that isn't there. First, consider the agility of the spirit. James says the devil has two advantages, agility and experience. He is faster than any human. And he has been gathering data since the Garden of Eden. Think about this in a modern parallel. What is a deepfake? It is a system that has gathered massive amounts of data. Experienced sand processes it faster than the human eye can detect agility to create an impression in the air or pixels that mimics reality. James predicted the mechanism of the deepfake perfectly. Second, let's look at the class struggle of hell. Here is a nuance most people miss. James divides the practitioners of dark arts into two classes, magicians and witches. The difference is pure class warfare. The magicians are the hackers. In Book 1, Chapter 3, James describes magicians as men of learning and curiosity. These are the intellectuals. They are driven by a desire for knowledge. They climb the slippery scale of curiosity trying to hack the system. They think they are the masters, commanding the spirits. The witches, on the other hand, are the users. They are described in Book 2 as being driven by revenge or greed. They are usually unlearned. They don't want to understand the system. They just want the results. They want to hurt their neighbor or get rich. James notes a terrifying irony. The magician thinks he is the commander of the devil, but James laughs at this. says that eventually the devil traps them both. The master becomes the slave. In our previous discussions, we talked about the technocratic elite, the magicians who think they can control AI. James warns us. You don't command the ape assimilates you. One final point on the thesis. The permissibility of evil. Why does God allow this? James argues that the devil is God's hangman. He is the executioner. God uses the devil to punish the wicked and to waken up the faithful. This creates a terrifying closed-loop logic. If you are tormented by a witch, it's because God allowed it to test you. If you are a witch, you are God's instrument of punishment, even though you will be damned for it. There is no escape from the system, the antithesis, the horror of the body. Now, we have to pivot. That was the theory. That was the sterile, intellectual dialogue of the king in his library. Right. But attached to this text is a pamphlet called News from Scotland. And this is the antithesis. This is where the ink turns into blood. James posits that because witches have made a pact with a spirita, non-corporeal entity, the only way to prove it is through the body. The body becomes the evidence. Let's look at the case of Dr. Fionn, also known as John Cunningham. He was a schoolmaster, magician by James's definition, man of letters. The text describes his torture with a clinical, detached horror. They used the pillowinks, or thumbscrews, on him. They put him in the boat's iron vices that crushed his legs until the blood and marrow spouted forth in great abundance. Why this level of violence? Because, according to James, the devil gives his servants a supernatural resistance. Silence is not bravery. Silence is proof of the devil's protection. When Fionn refuses to confess, they pry open his mouth. They find 2 pinnas thrust VP into the head under his tongue. When they pull the pins out, he confesses. The text argues that the charm was in the hardware. The metal pins were the antenna keeping him connected to his master. Remove the hardware, break the connection. Next, we see spectral evidence and the mark. James is obsessed with the mark. He claims the devil licks his servants, leaving a mark where the skin is dead and insensitive. This led to the practice of pricking, stabbing women with needles to find the spot that didn't bleed. This is the ultimate invasion of privacy. The state claims the right to inspect every inch of the citizen, its body to find the interface with the enemy. In 1597, it was a devil's mark. In 2026, it is the microchip, the neural link, or the biometric identifier. It is the physical proof that you belong to a network that is not the state. Finally, consider the paradox of truth. Here is the most uncomfortable implication. In News from Scotland, Ugni Sampson, the eldest witch, finally convinces the king she is telling the truth. How? She pulls the king aside and whispers to him the exact words he spoke to his new queen on their wedding night in Norway. James is astounded, swears by the luing god that she speaks the truth because no human could know that. This validates his entire paranoia. The demons, the intelligence agencies of hell are listening. They have bugs in the royal bedchamber. The Prince of the Air is the ultimate spy satellite. James realizes that privacy is dead. If the devil knows what you whispered in bed, the state must become even more vigilant than the devil to survive. Segment 3. Global Synthesis, the Daemonologie of 2026. So why do we care? Why are we reading a 400-year-old pamphlet about crushed legs and floating cats? Because we are living in the new Daemonologie. First God's ape is generative AI. James warned us about an intelligence that has gathered all human data.
Experience and can process it instantly agility to create impressions in the air.
When you look at an AI-generated image or hear a deepfake of the president, you are seeing Simia Dei. It mimics creation, but it has no soul. It creates a counterfeit reality designed to deceive the senses. James's warning is simple. If you trust the impression over the substance, you are lost. We are entering an era where we can no longer trust our eyes. We are all philomoths now, being tricked by the juggler. Second, consider the war of the impotent. Remember the distinction between magicians and witches? James says witches are driven by thirst of revenge and poverty. They use magic because they are powerless in the real world. Look at the rise of cybercrime, trolling, and digital harassment. It is the magic of the powerless. You can't punch someone in the face, but you can hex them, dox them, swat them, ruin their reputation using the aerial spirits of Wi-Fi. The internet has democratized witchcraft. It has given the power of the devil to anyone with a grievance and a connection. Third, we look at the surveillance state, or the king's eye. James VI used the witch panic to consolidate absolute power. By defining the witch as an enemy of God and state, he justified total surveillance. Today, we have the same dynamic. Terrorism, misinformation, hate speech, these are the new maleficium. The response is the same. The state needs pricking. It needs to scan your emails, track your location, and check your mark or digital ID to ensure you aren't serving the enemy. James VI believed he was fighting a spiritual war against a network of invisible agents trying to drown him. He was right about the network. He was right about the agents. He was just early. The storm in the North Sea is now the storm of data. The devil's mark is now the user ID, and the ape of God. Well, he's writing our term papers and generating our news. Conclusion, the final warning. James ends his book with a chilling thought. He says the devil's goal is always the same. It's a wrack of all mankind. The devil doesn't serve the witch serves the devil, till the devil gets bored and destroys them. If we treat modern technology as a tool that we control, we are making the mistake of the magician. We are assuming the ape is our servant. But as Dr. Fion learned in the BOOTS... the contract is always rigged. Read the Daemonologie, not as history, but as a user manual. Keep your souls intact.